Thank you very much, Jeff. And I just want to say it's a real honour to have shared a stage with Richard, because without Richard, I wouldn't have a voice in British politics at all. We wouldn't have a vehicle to fight for this country at all if it wasn't for the personal sacrifice of Richard and his financial sacrifice even to keep going and keep the party going all this time. He had so many options, Richard Tice. Rumour has it, and I was saying to him earlier, look how dashing Richard looks. Rumour has it he was next in line after Daniel Craig to be the next James Bond. They even had a whole film scripted ready. Richard Tice's 007 License to Drill, right? That was Richard Tice. He had all of these options, but he chose to fight for this country through reform. It's been an interesting week. Keir Starmer, we've had the Conservative Party, who are basically on life support at the moment. Keir Starmer, the globalist, the Davos-loving individual, the one who sees international law as divine revelation, is now channeling the spirit of Enoch Powell, believe it or not. It's now two-tier Keir has gone on to become far-right Keir in an effort to woo us in this room. But we all know, everybody knows this, the public know this, the Labour, they don't have the hardware to do anything that this country needs. So what he's doing is he's flirting with all of you. He's showing a bit of ankle. He's trying to tease all of you. While Nigel and Richard have been campaigning for strong borders for decades, Starmer assumes a personality just for expediency. It's the politics of power versus the politics of conviction which we stand for. That's what reform is all about. But do you know what it is? He has come up with a policy, for example, the care home policy, restrictions on employing people from abroad. When you're running scared and you're terrified and you make policy like that, it always has holes and it always goes wrong. Now everybody's asking, who's going to fill the 130,000 vacancies in a care home? He hasn't thought about unlocking the welfare system, the civilization that are languishing on the welfare system. He hasn't thought about raising tax thresholds so that people keep more money in their pocket and incentivized to work. He hasn't thought about putting training and expertise in to train people to get into workforce. And as Richard was saying earlier, to deregulate the care sector. If we are going to wean off this country from mass immigration, from a dysfunctional economy that relies on mass immigration, like a drug addict, we need a whole system government approach that only reform is offering. And that's the difference. The public will start to see that sharp difference between us. But the real kind of notorious statement that he made was, we are an island of strangers, right? And it sent chills down the back of his backbenchers, right? We are an island of strangers. Even he, in his empty rhetoric, is starting to realize something deeply profound. The economy is critical. Energy prices are critical. But at the epicenter of British politics right now, it is culture and it is identity. People are feeling like we are losing this country, like sand sipping through our fingers. We are losing the very nature of what it is to be British. We have suffered under successive governments no less than a cultural assassination on this country. And that is what is motivating people and causing people to lament. Kemi Badenoch, she said this country has been treated like a dormitory, has been treated like a hotel. But I don't think she's gone far enough. This country has effectively been pimped out on a street corner. That's what's happened. If you look at the reality of what's happened to this country, sectarian politics on the rise, towns and cities unrecognizably British. I have friends coming from abroad, and they're like, you telling me this is England? Are you telling me this is Britain? Over 1 million people who can't speak English. You know, we have crime, sexual assault through the roof. This is what is antagonizing people more and more. And the Conservative Party, some of them believe, oh, the solution to getting back voters from Reform is to get Boris Johnson back in the fray. That they're responsible for the Boris wave. I call him Boris the betrayer, right? Boris the betrayer, who sold out this country. He's one of the ones who pimped out this country. He'd be better suited to working for Serco than he would for the British government. When we won the Runcorn election, Nigel was interviewed, I think by a Sky News journalist, who said, when Nigel was talking about the immigrant and migrant hotels, the Sky News journalist said to him, aren't you sowing division? Aren't you sowing division, Nigel? Isn't Reform sowing division in this country? I think they asked you that even yesterday in Peston. They asked Richard that, aren't you sowing division? That's a common accusation against Reform UK. They do not understand we are saving this country from fracturing irreversibly. That is what Reform is doing. The anger and resentment that is building is so palpable right now. Professor David Betts, have any of you heard of him? An academic of war studies. He has systematically, academically laid out the future of what Britain is heading towards. He is basically predicting that we are heading for some kind of sectarian civil war, right? And he's mapping out academically, this is not just opinion or rhetoric, academically the symptoms that are going to be set in place for this to happen. That anger, that resentment is boiling because there is a democratic deficit. People are losing faith in democracy. Labour started the experiment of mass immigration. The Conservatives have put it on steroids. And the Lib Dems, they don't even know it's happening. They don't even know it's happening. They're living in the insular world. They have no idea. And they're living their self-righteous world. They have no clue what's going on. Ed Davey doesn't even take himself seriously, let alone the country. But that is the nature of what is going on. Reform is here to restore faith in democracy, to relieve the pressure through action, by listening to people, by implementing the right policies and pressurizing the government to make the change that the British people want. The answer to a failed multicultural experiment is a unifying British identity that brings us all together. I was born here. My parents have come from Sri Lanka. I'm a devout Hindu. But do you know what I love to see? When we announced that we'll have the British flag in our county councils, right? That made me so happy. A simple gesture. A simple gesture. We're not going to have a pride flag, a Palestine flag, or even a Ukrainian flag as much as we support them. We're going to have a British flag because that is the unifying identity, regardless of your ethnicity, your background, whatever it is. I'm a Hindu, a devout Hindu, and I have a heritage from Sri Lanka. But all of that needs to align to the values and principles of that flag because we are one nation and one people. That is what Reform is bringing to the table. And if we look at the county council elections, right, we are swept across England. We're going to sweep across Wales, God willing. We're going to sweep across Scotland. And what we're going to find is something very, very interesting over the next 2-3 years. The groundwork, the grassroots of this country at local level will be ruled by Reform UK. But the national government will be ruled by Labour. Labour will have the authority of Parliament, but do you know what? We will have the authority of the people. And what we will do is this so-called loveless landslide that the Labour enjoyed will be toppled by cutting the very foundations. We will tackle the very grassroots of the country, and this whole Labour tree will fall apart. We are setting the agenda. Have you noticed Keir Starmer is now dancing to our tune, right? And what's going to happen as time goes on, as Reform succeeds? The backbenchers of the Labour Party are going to realise we've got nothing to lose. We're going to lose our seats. And a massive schism is going to form in the Labour Party because of Reform's success. And they are going to act as our ambassadors within the Labour Party to put pressure on Keir Starmer to get us in the right direction. What this means is we don't necessarily have to wait to the next general election to see some kind of movement and alignment. And that is because of the success of Reform UK. That is what we need to realise. Now, what I would say is We have to realise Nigel knows how to win the argument. We don't live in a presidential system, right? Where you can just stand there and say your piece and it's me versus him. Nigel knows. This is why he's a once-in-a-generation, perhaps once-in-a-century campaigner and statesman. He knows how to build a party and how to take a party across the country in the first-past-the-post system. And he knows how to win. And what we'll find by 2029 is the legacy of the Labour Party. Their legacy will be this: a series of broken promises. Stop the boat, smash the gangs. Do you think they're going to do that? Net zero. A green revolution. Tony Blair's already smacked the bottom of Ed Miliband and sent him to his room. That's already happened. An AI revolution. You're not going to get an AI revolution if you don't have cheap energy. 1.5 million homes, Angela Rayner says. They're not going to build that. And even if they do, it's going to go to the migrants. Right? And Rachel Reeves, what does she say? Growth. The mantra of growth. If I chant it enough, the heavens will open and the money will flow. No, we are heading for a recession. Broken promises will be the legacy, peppered with a prime minister who only delivers endless word salads that mean nothing, right? That will be the legacy. Our legacy will be to sweep in at that opportune moment to take power. And Nigel said this in one of his interviews. He said we would have the legislation ready, the homework will be done, so the King's speech on day one of that parliament will be there ready to pull back the country from the brink of destruction, because that's where it will be, no doubt. And what reform has to do is initiate a great British resurrection. That is what we need, a great British resurrection. We are at a civilizational moment. I truly believe that. This is a once-in-a-century situation in British politics. We are at the forefront of this wave, behind Richard and Nigel. And this is what we are fighting for. We are fighting for this country. Thank you very much.